Welcome back to the Heat. China says it's moving from competition to cooperation with Japan. The Chinese leadership hosting Japan's prime minister for 3 days of talks. Both countries have agreed to improve relations and sign more than 500 business deals. Chinese President Xi Jinping also received a formal invitation to visit Tokyo. So let's get back to our panel. Yoshikazu, it's interesting how this is being framed in the Western media. This is from the Wall Street Journal. China's willingness to roll out the red carpet for Abe was impelled in part, analysts say, by China's need for friends in the region while it battles President Trump over trade issues. But we have some video from April we want to roll for you. This is when Abe himself was having Premier Lee come and visit Tokyo. That was back in April. It was part of a trilateral gathering. It was Li Keqiang and, of course, the leader from South Korea. They were meeting, and he rolled out the red carpet for him. This is actually May. I take it back. It was May. And you see the two leaders there. A very formal affair, part of a trilateral summit with South Korea. Because Japan at the time felt like they were on the outside looking in when it came to the Korean Peninsula. And once again, during this visit, Lee and Abe were talking about the DPRK. Let's listen to what they had to say.
Both parties agreed to cooperate on the DPRK nuclear issue. China supports Japan and North Korea to improve their relationship through dialogue and to appropriately resolve outstanding issues.
Japan and China shoulder great responsibility for maintaining peace and stability in the region. We have agreed that there is a need to continue to work together closely to achieve the common goal of the two countries, the denuclearization of the DPRK. By doing this, we will carry out this responsibility.
Yoshikazu, I wanted to play those sound bites because the DPRK and Japan had a secret meeting in Vietnam without telling the United States because Abe had kind of lost faith in President Trump and his dealings with the Korean Peninsula. So how important is for these two leaders to be out there making a statement about the DPRK and talking about their relationship with the DPRK?
I think for Abe's visit this time to Beijing, I think beyond the economic ties, I think DPRK issue, I mean, how to tackle the Korean Peninsula issue is a very important focus for Japan. Because now, for Shinzo Abe's political legacy, how to resolve the abduction issue would be very important. But of course, denuclearization over the peninsula is, regarded Japan's entire security, homeland security. That's so. I think now Shinzo Abe is trying to communicate, of course, with Mr. Trump, United States, but Japan needs China's help. So I think in the meeting with President Xi Jinping, Shinzo Abe pointed out how could China help Japan in this regard. And of course, not only the abduction issue, but the entire denuclearization. So I think now for Japan's national interest, how to resolve the DPRK issue based on the cooperation with the United States and China. So this is going to take some process and time, but this is a real focus for Shinzo Abe's political legacy as the longest administration since World War II.
And Qinduo, do you see it that way as well? A very important statement there, firm statement from both, as well as a firm commitment to multilateralism as well.
Yes, I think for China, China and Japan share the common goal, that is the denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula. That is the ultimate goal because it serves the interests of everybody in this region and also the United States and Russia too. And secondly, I think the kidnapped Japanese citizens by the North Korean side, I think you do find the public sympathy from the Chinese here. People think that's wrong. People think that China should help and can help with Japan in solving that problem, in bringing back other Japanese citizens from North Korea, with the relations between nations in this region, improves. But of course, there are some differences, between Japan and the U.S. and Japan and China. For example, Japan and the U.S. is about the approaches to deal with North Korea. Trump's approach is more personal, and for Japan, it's more cautious. And also, U.S. is thinking about its own interests, and Japan is concerned with its interests being left behind or being sidelined. For the Chinese side, China would see, it's not only about the sanctions, sanction alone to solve this problem. You need also to encourage North Korea to do more on the road of denuclearization. And Japan is stressing about, we will establish relationship until there's a full disarmament of nuclear weapons. So it's a bit different between the Chinese approach and Japanese approach. But anyway, there's the common goal is there should not be nuclear weapons in the region.
And Wenran, this formal invitation to visit Tokyo given to President Xi, can this momentum continue to keep moving forward, do you think?
Well, we see the momentum now. We also see the strategic interest in East Asia, while the economic interests began to converge. The strategic dynamic is also complex. It is not a US-led, joined by Japan, Australia, India to contain China strategic picture, and China reacting to that by getting closer to Japan. There's a need for China to play an active role regarding North Korea. And that's where the next dynamic comes. When the Japanese inviting President Xi Jinping to go to Japan, they want to elevate the current cooperation into the next stage. I think the Americans should encourage Japan to have a better relationship with China, to send signal to Beijing saying this is not a containment issue on the strategic side. While the economic side, both sides are working together, they want to elevate to put the bilateral relationships beyond the dispute on the Diaoyu Sankaku Island. Everybody now realized the need for each other outweigh much bigger than the dispute on a small island, which should be, again, put back onto the shelving. I would want to see that President Xi taking the visit, taking the invitation, go to Japan, and then to cement relationship further while try to improve relations with President Trump.
Well, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Thank you all for joining us. Really appreciate it. That is it for this edition of The Heat. I'm Mike Walter in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.